Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach, and today we have with us Mark Drager, who's the founder of Phanta Media. Mark, welcome to the program.
Mike, thank you for having me, man. I love it.
You are welcome. First of all, before I dive into what you do, how you do it, and all about branding, what is the story behind Phanta? Why Phanta Media?
So for different people in different parts of the world, Fanta is a pop. It's a soda, right? That's what we first think of. When I started my agency back in 2006, you'd be surprised, but if you remember way back then when the internet was a little baby, you had to have a .com.
Yeah.
And guess what? Every single person in the world who graduated from film school or college or media, they all started marketing companies, and it was like almost impossible to find anything that was a .com. So we made up this word Phanta, P-H-A-N-T-A, and it was short for phantasm, which is a big fancy word for basically an optical illusion or apparition.
Yeah.
But mostly we as business strategists, we just needed something we can get a .com for.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. But I do remember, if I'm remembering right, Fanta the drink was spelled with an F. So you just spelled it with a PH and kind of abbreviated something fantastic or the apparition. So that's awesome. I love hearing stories behind why people select a company, and sometimes it becomes part of your brand story, right? So let's dive into that. Give us a little bit of your entrepreneurial journey, from film school or your background, and why did you get into entrepreneurialism at the beginning, and then why into branding?
Yeah, well, listen, I'll keep it super short because it's hard to wrap up 20 years of experience. But essentially, when I was a senior in high school, my whole life plan was I was going to be an architect and an engineer. I grew up in a construction family, a family of developers, and not only did everyone in my family think that was a really cool idea, I loved space and environment and light and textures, and I loved the idea of creating spaces. And then as a senior, I was failing for the first time a course. I was like kind of this easy grade A student. Like I could just show up, memorize everything, and get great grades. And I was struggling with chemistry, and I thought, if I can't do this chemistry thing, how am I going to become an architect and an engineer?
Yeah.
And I got really scared. And I was taking this film course, and frankly, it just seemed a lot more fun. And so out of fear and out of like, hey, this might seem like an easier and more fun path, I went to film school instead. And when I graduated from film school, I think like most young people, I thought the world is waiting for me. Like I see this in startup and entrepreneurs where they hang their shingle out and they go, okay, world. Or people launch a new product and they go, okay,
one at a time now, and then it's like crickets.
Exactly. So I graduate and I'm like, okay, industry, I am here. Mark Drager has graduated. I know you guys have all been waiting for me, but don't worry, here I am. And guess what? No one cared.
Yeah, right.
And so I worked a little bit in television, freelance for about a year. I hated that. I worked in a hotel in selling AV, like AV rentals for live events for a year, and I hated that. And it felt like 2 years out of school. I'm only like 22 at this point, but 2 years out of school, I felt like, man, I'm wasting my life. And so I got a job, which turned out to be one of the greatest things. I got a job in-house at a franchise. I worked at the franchisor level, creating communications and marketing, franchise development marketing and training and onboarding and all kinds of content. I created video back in 2005 on tape.
Oh, wow.
And we had 1,500 offices in 90 countries and territories. And because it was an entrepreneurial organization selling franchises about internet marketing, I learned so much. In 2 years that I was there, I learned I was introduced to A/B testing, and I was introduced to target audiences and segmentation and how businesses work and how franchising works and all of these different things. And my wife and I got pregnant. We had my first daughter. She's about to turn 16, so this was a while ago. But the week she was born, I remember turning to my wife and thinking, I think I want to start a company. Like I know that I get paid to work at this franchise, and I get paid whatever I made at the time, 45 grand a year or something. Living in Toronto is a very high cost of living area.
Yeah.
We were not making a lot of money. And I thought, you know what? I do this for one company. If I did it for 10, I would make so much more money. Like that was the pitch to my wife. And I was 23. She was 23. She had no income. I was the sole breadwinner. And I had this crazy idea. I'm going to quit my job. And I'm just going to go ahead. And if I do this for one company and make X dollars, if I did it for 10, I'd make so much more.
And at that point in your career, was the side hustle a thing or was it, I must quit this to jump in with both feet?
Yeah, there was no such I mean, I wasn't aware of it, but back in 2006, first of all, there was entrepreneur was not really a huge term. I was a small business owner. Yeah. And side hustle was not a thing.
And it wasn't cool and in vogue.
No. And frankly, like this was before YouTube was purchased by Google. This was before Facebook was, I just started a profile like the week before I left.
Wow. Twitter
wasn't a thing. Our first website was an HTML page with a Flash file on it. Like these are the old.
I know that stuff. Yep.
but you know, I worked my tail off. Like when I went into that company, I decided that I wanted to make sure 3 months in, they couldn't even remember how they operated without me.
Yeah.
So I was working 40, 50, 60 hours easily. And so there was no like idea like I could do this on the side. It was all or nothing.
Right.
But what I did do was I approached the CEO of the company and I gave him all of the reasons why it did not make sense for them to have me on payroll. You know, I was a fixed cost. There was no control over what we were doing. Their costs were going to continue to increase because media demand was going to increase. So I said, let me leave, outsource all of the main work that I'm doing now to my new company, and let me take all the equipment with me for no cost. So just let me leave, let me take the equipment, and you be my first customer, and this makes sense for everyone. And he said,
that was bold.
It was, and he said, let's do it.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I had the courage and my first customer to start my business. Now, 3 months in, none of the, all of that. Like I was like, hey, let me leave and it'll give you more control over your spend. Well, it gave them so much control over their spend, they canceled all the projects.
Oh.
So 3 months in, I had I think we had like $7,000 in revenue. I only started this with a $20,000 line of credit that I borrowed from my mom. And my wife's not working, and I'm at home, and we had very little savings.
And baby.
And a new baby.
Yeah.
And by 5 months in, I realized, I'm about to go bankrupt. I need to do something different.
So what did you do?
I asked for help.
Nice.
It was the hardest thing in the world for me to admit that 5 months in that I was not doing well. Not doing as well as I told everyone, because I was like, yeah, things are great. I would get up in the morning. I would go to work because I sublet this tiny little office off of a friend, and I would sit there all day with nothing to do.
Wow.
Like I quote unquote worked, busy work, trying to email people, trying to call people, trying to cold call, trying to network, trying to set stuff. I had nothing to do. And when people would say, how's it going? I'd say, great. Because I don't want to say I'm a few months in and it's going like terribly. But I finally said like, oh man, I need help. And so I told a friend that I needed help, and they said, oh, you know what? This person you used to work with, they just started becoming a business coach. And they were older. They were in sales. I had no sales. They seemed to know what they were doing. Yeah. I reached out for help for a coffee, and I said, hey, I heard that you started becoming a business coach. I don't know what I'm doing. And they saved me. Frank Milner.
Nice.
Frank Milner was his name. He saved me.
Let's even pause right here and go, okay, you were bold. You used the word courage. You went to that boss and said, I've got this idea. You pitched it with all the right emotion and logic. They took it. And then when things didn't start going the way you wanted, you reached out for help. So mentor, admitting your faults, your transparency, you got help. All these are things that Tony Robbins would teach, life coaches would teach. And these are things that are lessons along the way. So then Frank says to you what to get you into branding. How did branding come into the mix at that point?
Well, it didn't. It took actually a few years. But what Frank taught me was that I did not understand how to explain my value.
Yeah.
I started a video production company because like most of us, I had a craft. And if you're an electrician, if you're a programmer, if you're whatever you are, you have a craft. And you go out to the world. I went out to the world and I said, hey, I'm a video producer. I make videos. Who needs a video? And guess what? In 2006, 2007, not a lot of people needed not the people I was networking with. And what he helped me understand is it's the old rule of, people don't buy a hammer. They want to hang a photo. They want to hang a picture on the wall, right? And he helped me realize that outcome was what people paid for.
But you know what? With that example, I've heard that so many times. I've also heard it with selling the drill. They don't want the drill. They want the hole in the wall so that they can. Yeah. But then I've heard people take it to the next step. Because have you ever heard of this concept in sales? Sell the futures, not the features, and sell the transformation. They don't care about the transportation. They want the transformation. So yeah, you want that hole in the wall to put the picture on it. But why do you want that? Oh, well, I want my room to look wonderful. Well, what's important about that? I want when people come in to see this spectacular picture that I had a local native in Fiji paint when we were on our favorite vacation in the world, and I want to sit there and I want to enjoy it, and I want people to ask me about it, and now they get to status and prestige, and that's what you want. Oh, you need a hammer to do that.
I am clapping along, audience. Clap along with me because, Mike, you are so good at this. I did not know that early on. And so, frankly, I just needed to save my business and not go bankrupt. 2009 happened. It wiped out all of our cash on hand. And even then we were making videos, we were making better videos, but people hired us to make a video. And I wanted to do better work than I could do. I am not a director. I am not a camera operator. I'm not good at lighting. In my industry, there's 32 different variables that go into a project. And I was only good at 3 of them.
Yep.
And I needed a team to be able to deliver what I wanted to deliver so that way I could have prestige and status, but I could have a portfolio so I could sell more. And I just needed team. And for team, I needed revenue. And for revenue, I needed sales. And so what really happened was I started taking more ownership over the outcome. But what turned me into a brand strategist, and anyone who progresses through their career from a craft to maybe a salesperson or a CEO to someone who actually builds a company, is when you move from I'm going to deliver something to you to I'm going to take ownership over the outcome.
Yep.
And so when people would come to me, big companies, big corporations, I'm 25 at this point, 26, 27. I'm working with international brands and companies. I'm hosting or holding meetings, briefing meetings and strategy sessions where I can recall at one point there were 14 C-suite executives around a boardroom table for an insurance company. And I held them for 3 hours. I'm 25 or 26. Wow. And I walked out going, I don't know how much money they just spent to have all those people sit in this room.
Right.
But the reason was, and I still didn't consider myself a brand strategist at the time, but what I did do is go, okay, client, you're going to invest X dollars for X reasons. We need to make sure this is effective. We need to make sure this works. Yeah, it's going to look pretty. Yeah, it's going to feel good. Yeah, it's going to do what you want. But if Mark Drager, if I'm the one responsible, you're hiring me and my company, and we're responsible for handing back to you something that gives you a return on your investment, I better make sure this is the right thing.
And there's a big difference between branding, because people's connotation of branding, oh, I've got a good website, I'm good. Oh, I've got a good logo, I'm good. But there's a big difference between the true definition of branding and being that brand strategist. And I think it kind of gets back to what you said. One of your original kind of personal drivers was I wanted to create spaces, as an architect and an engineer, you like structure, and I want to create spaces. Well, in reality, you're still creating spaces. You're creating spaces in someone's mind in the positioning of the message that you're crafting for your clients, and you're creating that space and that, fantastic, kind of getting back to and now all of a sudden, your branding takes on a whole new life, and you layer then in, begin with the end in mind, and what's the why behind this, and you tie all that together and go, look, here's the branding aspect, but as a brand strategist, I need to tell you this. We need to be doing it this way because it's going to lead to this, which ultimately leads to that, and that gets people off of the minutia of what font and color and color palette should my logo be.
Yeah. Well, and you've touched on it. I mean, so I had to become a brand strategist because I was being handed hundreds of thousands of dollars, or sometimes just thousands of dollars. But no matter what, it was a lot of money for the clients to give me, and I had to give them back something that was effective. And it forced me to get in front of it and to create systems and structures and ways of thinking and frameworks to be able to say, how can we create the most effective tool, sales tool, awareness tool, branding tool, positioning, whatever it might be. What do we need to say, and how do we need to look, and how do we need to make people feel to get them to take a certain action so we can get what we want? And somewhere along the way, in the 15, 16 years I've been doing this, I realized that I'm a brand strategist. And to your point, what we do today, what we do at Phanta today is we help speakers and coaches, entrepreneurs, and consultants. We help them figure out who they need to be, right? It's important to know who you are, but more importantly is who do you need to be able to influence people, motivate people, inspire people, capture their attention. And so what we do is we have a process where we figure out exactly what it is that they want, what it is their specific audiences or targets or prospects wants, and then what their competition or market is not doing so they can show up in a unique way.
So I'm sure this is not the case, but when I hear you say, I help people figure out who they need to be to succeed in branding and whatever, it makes me think of the old cliche politician, like, oh, I'm talking to the steel workers, I'm going to tell this group this thing, and then now I'm talking to this, I'm going to say whatever I need to say to get the deal done. But no, what you're saying, I'm confident of, is it's all in you anyway. We're just helping to peel back the layers and figure out who you really are anyway, and then tell that story the right way to properly resonate with your target audience.
100%. And the politicians who do this really well, in fact, are doing exactly what you say. I do, to a certain degree, want you or our clients or the people who are listening. I do want you to show up saying what you need to say to the steel worker versus the C-suite people, because they're different audiences with different, what they care about is different.
But all aligning with your same core values. Right. Right. Like you might say, you might just drop the phrase, some vernacular with doctors or lawyers, but it's still the same core message. You're not changing your core message per the group that you're talking to, because then that's flip-flopping. So then what are you doing with the client? How do you help them realize how to polish up that message which ties to their brand so that their message is clear and concise? And I'm certain you've read the great book, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, where he says, when you confuse, you lose. Well, you got to get that messaging dialed in really tightly so that it's nice and concise.
Yeah, well, like ultimately what we do, we would call it the core three process, because there's three core elements to any brand building. Most people do one, maybe they do two, but they don't get specific enough. So I've worked with hundreds of organizations on thousands of projects. We've used this process to produce more than $12 million of creative content. So I know it works. But here's what we do. Core element number one is you. Your company, your vision, your goal, your brand, whatever it might be. I'm sure you've spoken to people where you say, hey, what do you want to do? And it's kind of fuzzy. Yep. It's kind of vague. Like people want more, I'm doing air quotes here. People want more. I want more sales. I want more growth. I want more. But let's get really specific. And this is what we forced our clients always to do, is like, hey, you want us to go create something for you? Let's say it's a sales tool. What will the sales tool do? Not only the sales tool itself, but the campaign itself. And not only the campaign, but what will it do for you this quarter? And not only this quarter, what will it do for your business? Like, let's get very specific about who you are, your experiences, your mindset, your point of view, your perspectives, the things that make you different, your voice, what it is you're building, how will you build it, what market are you in? All of those things, when you get really specific and you force black or white, left or right, yes or no decisions, and you're not dealing in the way of like, well, kind of everything, right? Like get really specific. Right. It forces you then on the second step. The second core element is your prospect, your customer, or your target audience. Once you get really specific, we had a client who was launching an aftermarket accessory for Teslas. And so, great, Tesla owners. Awesome. Let's get specific. Yep. Specifically the Tesla 3. Let's get more specific than that. New car owners of Tesla 3s. When we went to our target audience research, what we did was we not only looked at the forums and we looked at the purchasers and we looked at who's buying them, we looked at which geographies had the highest density of charging stations in the US. And therefore, by knowing who has the highest density of charging stations, we know which regions we would be focusing on. And then from there, we specifically had a pretty luxurious product. So we overlaid that with high net worth individuals or people with high incomes, and it tailored it even further. And then from those regions, we could look at geographic makeup, or we could look at ethnic background. We could look at which professions people are in, which platforms they go onto. And once you know what you want to accomplish, and once you truly understand your audience in a very specific way, you can break down the messages or the emotive experiences or the challenges that they're facing. And then now out of this part of the process, we have something like 40 different types of people with 40 different types of messages. And the next step then is, which no one does, is you look at those specific markets or your specific competitors, not just the competitors you know, not just the person you're competing for the deal with, but the competitor who is stealing your prospects' attention.
Yeah.
Who is stealing your prospects' disposable income. The people who are adding fear or uncertainty into your sales process. What are they doing, or what are they not doing? And which strategy will allow you to beat them to the prospect? And once you know what you want, once you know what your prospect or your target audience specifically wants, and once you understand your unique path to the prospect and how you will get in front of them, you now can craft a unique brand, a unique message, a unique ad, a unique creative, whatever you need to do. But you will have got in front of them with what they care about most in a really interesting and unique way. And that is essentially how we turn branding into a sales enablement tool.
I love it, love it, love it, love it. And let me just tell you this, you'll be doing the clapping here when I tell you this. I have for the last 10, 12 years consulted for the SBDC, the Small Business Development Centers in the Denver, Colorado area. Well, for years, and you go down, talk to a business owner, kind of like giving back, right? It's just kind of helping them out. For years, I would take them through this conversation. And then I started looking down at my, legal pad of paper and noticed a trend. And I was like, well, I keep asking the same questions. So then I just started drawing boxes around this. And then I just created what I call the 3-box system. And I call it CATASA, CATASA. At the top left is a box that says competitive advantage. At the bottom left is the box that says TA, target audience. And that's what you just described, those 2 points. I would submit to you that we could layer in my third box, which is SA, strategic alliances. So who already has the know, like, and trust with your target audience so that you can deliver your now polished up messaging to that strategic alliance so that they can help you come alongside you with some co-branding, co-marketing, do a joint summit, whatever the case is, where both of you benefit together and get that message out to that target audience, because now that strategic alliance has their arms wrapped around your shoulders, so to speak, and gets the attention of that target audience way quicker and easier than you could going directly. Now, you still go directly to them, but you layer that in with that strategic alliance.
Mike, I will clap that up, because your process and my process, great minds think alike, are exactly the same. And that's
awesome.
when I mentioned the third core element of target of your market or your competitors. What you're describing is the best and most strategic path to the prospect through strategic alliance. Yep. Now, what I will challenge everyone to think about is the fact that most of us who go through this process, we think it's this internal process. And so it's a very passive experience. Who am I? And who is my prospect or customer? And who is my competition? What we do, because we frankly have to these days, it's so competitive out there. We use a lot of auditing and strategic auditing and spying tools. We do a lot of market research. Rather than, again, this being a who am I passive experience, we make this an active thing. Who do I need to be?
Yep.
And we go out to the marketplace through our advanced tools to discover exactly what it is people are doing and what our competition's doing. So I love your process. That's essentially how we help people as well.
Yep. Well, I tell you what, Mark, if someone is listening to this going, I love the flow, the energy, the passion, the courage behind, taking a stand as a brand and, really getting my message dialed in. How can they learn more about what you guys do and connect with you and kind of see how that maybe you could help their brand out?
Yeah, well, the easiest thing to do is head over to our website, phanta.com. That's PHANTA.com. If you want to connect with me and have any questions, you can head over to Instagram and just DM me at Mark Drager. Mike, I did want to offer up to your audience, we do have this free playbook. It's 60 pages. It is extremely dense, and I don't say that like to sell it or anything, but like it's basically, I created an internal document for my team, our standard operating procedure, that has all of our systems, it has all of our tools, it has all of our advanced hacks, and it's not part of a funnel, it's not part of a free download, it's not part of anything right now. But if your audience wants a copy of this, it's called the Badass Brand Playbook. If they DM me on Instagram personally, I don't have a bot or anything. I'm not even that savvy. I will send it to you, though. I will share it with your audience. Just DM me and say, I want the Badass Brand Playbook, and I will share with you all of our secrets and how we go about it.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much for that. And thank you for coming on. Like minds think alike. And I just think that we had just such a deep conversation about things that are so important. And I really appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, thank you.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.